Hello, my name is Wade Skinner. I'm the pastor of Beckville Methodist Church, and I'd like to thank you for listening to this sermon. It is our hope and prayer that you are transformed into an equipped disciple of Jesus Christ because of watching and listening to this sermon. God bless you.
It's easy to lose hope in this life, isn't it? Sometimes we lose hope because things aren't going the way we expected them to go. And sometimes we lose hope because it feels as though life is crashing down around us, and no matter what we do or how hard we try, things just don't seem to get any better. Now, we can relate both of those causes for hopelessness to people on a personal level, and we can also talk about them on an institutional level. Since we're in a church and we're talking about our vision for this particular church and how it can give us hope for tomorrow, perhaps we'd better connect those causes to our specific situation here. Now, this church has existed in the Beckville community for a long time. The best we can tell is since about 1844. Now, even the oldest among us in this room can't remember that far back. Since its inception, this church has seen many people come and go, and many pastors come and go. Some of you have been in this church a long time, and you have emotional ties to this place. Perhaps you were married in this church. I know a few of you who are. Some of you have raised children in this church. Some of you have held funerals for loved ones in this church. And the thought of changing anything about this place scares you because you believe it means saying goodbye to those memories. Perhaps you're feeling stuck between holding on to the memories of the past and the way things used to be in the golden era of this church, and the uncertainty of a future that you know will require change. Now, so far in this series, we've looked at God's vision for two men, Noah and Abraham, both of whom had to make extraordinary sacrifices to follow God's vision for their lives and for their descendants. Now, neither I nor the strategic leadership team have asked anyone in this church to spend 100 years building a giant ship and then fill it full of animals and food for a flood that's coming who knows when and for who knows how long. No one has asked anyone in this room to sell your home and to leave your family and go to, Canada or Europe or Russia and travel around living in a tent, waiting on God to show you where you will settle. No one has asked you to sacrifice your one and only beloved son. No one has asked you to take a knife and cut the most intimate and sensitive part of your body as a sign and seal that you will keep your end of the covenant with God. But we have asked you to follow God's vision for this church as He has inspired those whom He has called to lead. You see, not everyone can lead. Not everyone is supposed to lead. No organization, but especially the church, can function like that. But we are all called to follow God. And that's what being a disciple of Jesus means, because all authority has been given to Him. Not some, not half, not most, but every single bit of it. And when we follow Jesus by making the gospel the center of our ministry here, we cannot fail. Everything else besides the gospel is really just details. And if you have felt hopeless about the future of this church, today is the day that I would like for you to regain your hope for tomorrow. And I would like to help you do that by remembering God's vision for Moses and the children of Israel. So the main idea I have for you today to take home with you is this: God's vision for the children of Israel requires faith, because they have to follow Moses' leadership out of Egyptian captivity into a good land where they can serve the Lord. And so today I'm going to have 3 points. The first is following the leader. I'm going to talk to you about the children of Israel following Moses. And then secondly, I'm going to talk to you about leaving the old life. And then finally, embracing the new life. So let's talk first about following the leader and what this looks like. Following Moses' leadership requires faith for the children of Israel, because the Lord, this is very interesting, will not give the sign that he has sent Moses until after the children of Israel have been delivered from their captivity. Notice in the passage that I read to you this morning in verses 11 and 12, when Moses asked God, God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? God's response is very peculiar. He says, I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that I've sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Now, Moses' leadership of Israel begins with an acute awareness of his unworthiness of the call. He asked God, God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? There's something in this question that we need to see. The first thing is that Moses is recognizing that he's no one important. Pharaoh is the king of Egypt. Moses is a shepherd. Additionally, Moses also has a history with the Pharaoh that is not very good. You see, Moses fled Egypt because the Pharaoh was trying to kill him after Moses killed an Egyptian who was beating a Hebrew slave. Get the picture? Why would the king of Egypt listen to me? Moses is asking. I'm a lowly shepherd and an escaped murderer who the Pharaoh wants dead. I'm the last person to send on this mission. Second, Moses' question is meant to bring light to the fact that he is not a part of the children of Israel. He's an outsider. We see this in the little episode where Moses attempts to intervene in an argument between two Hebrew slaves back when he lived in Egypt. And we see these two Hebrew slaves asking Moses this very sarcastic question. Who made you a prince and a judge over us? In other words, they don't respect Moses as any form of leadership. So Moses' question is really an inquiry about God's choice of him as a leader for this mission. God, are you sure you have the right fellow here? I'm a nobody, a shepherd, an escaped convict. I'm not an Israelite. What you need is a guy who's somebody, a VIP, and someone who's liked by the Pharaoh and is a part of this Israelite nation. But look at God's response to Moses. It's not what you would expect. He says, I will be with you, Moses, and this shall be the sign for you that I've sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Here's what God is saying to Moses in this moment. You're not going, Moses, on your own authority. I'm not sending you because you are somebody, Moses. I'm not sending you because you're a VIP. I will be with you means that all of your authority before the king of Egypt comes from me, the king of the universe, you know. Now that takes care of the problem of how a lowly shepherd is going to speak to the king of Egypt. But what about Moses' concern with relating to the children of Israel as an outsider? Well, God addresses that too, but in an incredibly unusual way. And this shall be the sign for you. After you brought the people of Egypt, the people of Israel out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. What God is saying is that Moses' confirmation as the leader appointed to deliver the Israelite nation from their captivity will not come before that deliverance, but instead will come after that rescue operation is complete. The sign indicating the validity of Moses' call to lead the people of Israel will come when they are doing what they are supposed to do. Serve the Lord on this mountain. Now, I'd like to extrapolate a few key points from the Lord's call of Moses for us here at Beckville Methodist Church. The first is that the Lord calls leaders who are not worthy. The Lord did not call me as your pastor because I'm a VIP. And any pastor who does not begin with Moses' question, who am I, is not really worth being a pastor. You see, really and truly, no one is worthy of leading a church as a pastor. What makes a pastor able to lead is his understanding first of just how unworthy he is for the task. And secondly, that all of his authority comes not from himself, but from God. All pastors really are just under shepherds of the only real and true shepherd, Jesus Christ. My own testimony bears this out. God did not call me to be a pastor until He was ready for me to be one. This meant that I did not pastor a church until over 10 years after I graduated seminary. You see, seminary did not make me qualified for the pastorate like I thought it would. Humility did. When I graduated from seminary at the ripe age of 25, I foolishly and proudly thought that I was not qualified to pastor a church because I had lots of knowledge about the Bible. You see, I knew Greek and Hebrew. Oh, yeah. God, however, had a different plan because He knew that pride, more than any lack of education, disqualifies a man from being a pastor. He knew that I needed humility, and so it wasn't until He brought me to the place where I finally said, "Who am I that I should pastor a church?" that God went, "Now you're ready. Now you're ready." And He opened the doors for me to be a pastor wide. And so today I stand before you as a man who knows that he is truly unworthy of this call, and that all authority has been given to Jesus Christ, and it is He who is with me in this endeavor, and it is His call on my life and my understanding of my own unworthiness that makes me qualified for this post. There's a second issue that aligns with Moses' concern that helps us understand why God would call an outsider to pastor a congregation full of Beckvillites. See, I'm not from Beckville. I grew up right up the road here in Longview, and I'm aware of a lot of the towns in this area. But before I got the call from Nick Scholars about this church needing a pastor, Beckville wasn't on my radar. I didn't seek y'all. And I wasn't really looking for a church at the time to pastor. I was already pastoring somewhere. And so when Nick called me, I had to look it up on a map. Have you ever wondered why God does that? Why would He bring you a pastor who's not from Beckville? Look, I don't pretend to know all of the reasons for that, but I suspect it has something to do with the fact that outsiders see things that insiders don't. You see, someone who lives and works and grows up in a community passes over things that are, quote, normal that an outsider would look at with curiosity. The strength of Moses' leadership was that he was an outsider. Even though he was born biologically a Jew, he grew up in an Egyptian household with Egyptian customs. He was, for all practical purposes, an Egyptian living in a Midianite community when God called him. This is equivalent to a person born from two American parents, growing up in a Mexican home, and then moving off to Canada and marrying a Canadian woman and creating a home with children in Canada, and then being appointed as a leader in the American government. Such a person would have little or no knowledge of his American heritage and the customs and language of the American people. This is in fact why Moses saw himself as such a poor choice. But it was precisely why God saw him as the perfect choice. You see, an insider wouldn't have had the same power because such a person would be too enmeshed in the hopelessness of the Israelite captivity and the seeming impossibility of any form of deliverance. The Israelite people needed an Israelite with an outsider's perspective to lead them to freedom. And so God raised up a Midianite shepherd with a murderous past to deliver His people. Strange choice. Moses was an unlikely choice for so many reasons, but he was God's choice. And so God removed every barrier, and he paved the way for his usefulness as Israel's deliverer. But I'm slow of speech and tongue. God says, no problem. I made your mouth. And I'll give you the words to speak, and I'll give you someone to speak for you who is eloquent and who speaks well, your brother Aaron. But God, if I try to go back, they'll kill me for what I did to that Egyptian. No problem. You see, all the people who once wanted to kill you are now dead. You see, when a person is chosen for a task and for a purpose by God, no one can stop it. When we considered the possibility of moving to Beckville, pastor here, I knew that if it was God's will, we wouldn't be able to stop it. Here we are. My second point before you this morning is leaving the old life. God sends Moses to deliver the children of Israel because he knows their sufferings. When the people of Israel finally left Egypt, they had been there for 430 years. That's a long time. It's enough time for at least 5 generations of Israelites to come and go. That's enough time for one to believe that God had forgotten all about his promise to Israel. But you see, God had not forgotten. And there's a little passage at the end of chapter 2 in Exodus where the writer there tells us that during those many days the king of Egypt died, and the people of Israel groaned because of their slavery and cried out for help. Their cry for rescue from slavery came up to God. And God heard their groaning. And God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. God saw the people of Israel, and I love this, and God knew. He knew. He wasn't aloof. He wasn't up there twiddling his thumbs. God knew. You see, when God makes a covenant, he never, ever breaks it. And even if it takes him 430 years, he will remember. God is not aloof to the suffering of his people. And even though he may not heal in our time or restore or deliver when we want, God hears the prayers of his people and is not slack when it comes to delivering them from suffering. This church has been in the Beckville community now for 181 years, at least. There have been at least 3 generations of Beckvilleites come and go, and many pastors come and go. While it may seem that God has forgotten this church at moments during those 181 years, I can assure you that he is not. He knows, he sees, and he hears. Are you praying for this church? Are you crying out to God? Are you trusting that God will accomplish his will in his time? I'm quite certain that there were many attempts and schemes and plots and plans in those 430 years to escape enslavement by the Egyptians. But it was not until the Lord called Moses that Israel was finally delivered from captivity. Now, was it Moses or God who delivered the children of Israel? Well, that's an interesting question. The text says yes. I've come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, God says. But he also says to Moses, I will send you to Pharaoh that you may bring the people out of Israel, the children of Israel out of Egypt. Someone once said that human instrumentality can be compared to a person cutting a steak with a knife. Did the person cut the steak, or did the knife? Now with humans and God, it's quite a bit more complicated, isn't it? Because humans aren't inanimate objects like steak knives. We have wills and desires and intellects. And although Moses led the children of Israel out of their captivity, it was God who sent him and who enabled him to do it. Too many churches give their pastors too much credit because they have forgotten that it is God who gives us the ability and the power to do all things. Without him, we are as useless as Moses standing before Pharaoh with a wooden staff that could never, ever, on its own, turn into a serpent by human power. Moses alone could have never brought all those plagues on the Egyptians. It was God who delivered Israel. God did it. When Moses comes to God frustrated about why things aren't getting better and why they're getting worse and why God hasn't yet delivered Israel, he says, "Oh Lord, why have you done this evil to this people? Why did you ever send me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, and you have not delivered your people at all." You know, sometimes when we obey God and things don't get better as quickly as we want them or things get worse, we throw up our hands and we say, "What's the point?" Underneath that, and underneath Moses' complaint, is an accusation against God himself. God, you haven't done what you said you would do. Look at the Lord's response here to Moses. It's instructive for us here at Beckville Methodist Church as we consider God's vision for our future. We don't know how long Moses and his family lived in Egypt before the people of Israel were finally delivered. The movie versions of this story give the impression that it wasn't long, but the text seems to indicate that Moses was in Egypt for a while before he saw God's deliverance. But God's reminder here to Moses is a reminder of who is actually in charge. "I am the Lord," he tells Moses. "I'm the one who appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as God Almighty. But by my name, not yours, Moses, the Lord, I did not make myself known to them. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land in which they lived as sojourners. Moreover, I have heard their groanings." You see, God heard their groanings, not Moses. "Say therefore to the people of Israel," here's what you say to those people who are groaning, Moses. You say, "I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will deliver you from slavery to them, and I will redeem you. I will take you to be my people, and I will be your God, and you shall know that I am the Lord, your God, who has brought you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. I will bring you into the land that I swore to give Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will give it to you for a possession. I am the Lord." Moses spoke thus to the people of Israel, but they did not listen to Moses because of their broken spirit and harsh slavery. Some of you are living with a broken spirit. You've seen pastors come and go and people come and go, and it's hard for you to believe that this church can see a future. Here's the word. Remember who is actually in control. It's the Lord. He is the only one who is capable of delivering us. I can't do it. The strategic leadership team can't do it, but he can. And so I want to leave you with this today. It's time to embrace a new life, just like the children of Israel had to. You see, the first order of business for the children of Israel, once they had been delivered, was to serve God on Mount Horeb. I love this. This will be the sign, God says to Moses. This service to God is referenced later as sacrificing to the Lord and worshiping the Lord. The point is this. Deliverance from captivity meant that the people of Israel were now free to worship the Lord on his mountain and on his terms. In Egypt, Pharaoh was king, and whoever was the king of Egypt was worshipped as God. Part of what the Lord was showing the Egyptians was that he is the only God worthy of being worshipped. On Horeb, the Lord is the sole King of the universe, God of gods, Lord of lords. Friends, whatever we envision for our future here at Beckville Methodist Church, worship of the Lord must be at our center. This was the purpose that God delivered the children of Israel. We are here to serve God, friends, and not ourselves. You see, this church isn't a hamburger stand that we're trying to revitalize. It's a holy place of worship. And if we do nothing else, we must worship God as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Second, God tells Moses that he's bringing the children of Israel out of bondage and into a land of abundance. One that was promised to Moses' ancestor, Abraham. God says, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey. The first descriptive phrase that we have of the promised land is that it is a good and broad land. I love it. It's not narrow and hilly and barren. No, this is a place where creation is thriving. Animals are roaming, water is flowing, grass is growing, crops are growing. And in Deuteronomy chapter 8, Moses expands on God's vision for a good land. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and springs, flowing out in the valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive trees and honey. That phrase, land flowing with milk and honey, is designed to evoke images of a place where there's so much abundance that not only every need is met, but also every want. Milk and honey in this age and place were considered luxury food items, and they represented anything that was above and beyond the necessities of life. What God is saying is that the place I'm bringing you to is so luxuriant that it is a place where all of your desires are met above your needs. I'm not bringing you to this promised land so that you can merely survive and keep bread on your plate and the lights on. I'm bringing you to this place so that your cup will run over with abundance. A land in which you shall eat bread without scarcity, in which you will lack nothing, a land whose stones are iron and out of whose hills you can dig copper. And you shall eat and be full, and you shall bless the Lord your God for the good land he has given you. What does that description sound like? If you guessed the Garden of Eden, then you would be right. You see, in the beginning, God created a beautiful garden full of every kind of fruit tree that one could imagine that's good for food. This garden was luxuriant. It was full of streams and precious minerals and animals of all varieties. But the most important part of this garden was that it was free of sin and death. And then he put Adam and Eve in this perfect paradise, and he blessed them. And he told them, look, I want you to enjoy. I want you to eat from all these trees, except that one. Right there. That one, I don't want you to eat of that one. You're only restricted from eating one tree. Their Bible was very small. It was one sentence. What did Adam and Eve do? They ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That one tree they were not supposed to eat of. Now, there wasn't anything magical about that fruit. What was the point? What was God's point in placing a tree in the midst of that garden? Here's what God was doing. He was saying, I'm God and you're not. I get to make the rules, you don't. You see, I created you, you didn't create me. And so I get to put the boundaries in place and tell you what you can and cannot do. And so Adam and Eve's role was to submit to God's authority, to trust and obey. When Adam and Eve disobeyed God by eating that fruit, they experienced shame and brokenness, and God banished them from this beautiful garden. The unbroken communion they once had with him was gone. But it was not gone forever and for all time. You see, God had a plan to restore humanity to a relationship that was much better than Adam and Eve experienced, to a paradise that is much more beautiful than the Garden of Eden. And that plan culminates in the perfect life of obedience that Jesus lives and the death he endures on the cross for our sake. And it explains why Jesus looks at that thief on the cross who repents and believes in him, and what does he tell him? Today, you're going to be with me. Where? In paradise. Did you know that God has a plan for this church and this community that is far greater than any of us could ever imagine? Far better than me or our strategic leadership team could ever dream up on our wildest days. Did you know that God's mission of making disciples of Jesus is a restoration mission? He is redeeming sinners and making saints. He is turning enemies of God into friends of God. And he's making this church and this community into a little version of paradise. Do you see now why the beautification of our facilities here is important? We are creating a little paradise that reflects in a dim way the beauty of heaven itself. The ultimate paradise that awaits God's people. This is the reason that the church building should be the most beautiful place in the entire community. This is also why the church should be the most peaceful place in the entire community, full of people who trust and obey God and who love one another. Not a place of strife and arguing and warring against one another, but a place of rest and hope. A place where whole families gather together in harmony to worship the Lord. A place where husbands love their wives as they love their own selves. A place where parents teach their children to love the Lord above all else in this life. A place where people serve and love one another with extravagant hospitality. A place where the sick are healed and the poor are welcomed. A place where people cannot wait to get to Sunday worship and they're excited to be here. A place full of people who cannot wait to read their Bibles and who pray each day with the utmost of joy. A place where people are stumbling over one another to help and love and support their fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. Are you ready for a church like that? In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Thank you so much for watching this sermon and listening to it. If your life has been transformed because of watching it, we'd love to hear about it. Please send us an email at beckvillegmc@gmail.com. And let us know how we can support and encourage your relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. God bless you.